Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition. Hello, Julian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous on this day of 11/25/2024, Chris.
Welcome. Yes. Hello, Rita. Hello, Living Purpose Through God's Word, and Liana, and everybody that's starting to tune in. So, I've been working with the channel to broadcast on other platforms. So hopefully we can get that to prosper and get everything signed up and worked out. So how have you been?
I've been fabulous. I've been playing. I've been doing God's work, and just to tell everyone greetings, and also 11, which is that of asking you to step up to the messenger of the God that you are, the oracle of truth as well as justice, and understand and know that there's people who are lying, but your light brings them out of their shell and then they disappear. And then you have the 25, which is a higher 7, 257, and that's all about also being mindful and realizing that today is the high day of the alchemist. So you're embracing alchemistic qualities and energies and technologies. 2024 is that 8, which is all about the balance between your physical material money world, with the top being that of your mental as well as intuitive, bringing you to infinity of infinite intelligence, infinite mind, as well as your DNA code, which you have the ability to change. And today, Chris, is a Master 44/8 day, universal day, and that represents creating heaven on earth. That's creating a day today. And we got more hours left, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages. We have the ability to access and connect with our heaven and earth and realize what is the hell, what is challenging us in every which way for us to understand our life purpose, especially as we go into these days, these weeks, and these next months, going and stepping into 2025. How beautiful that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And tonight, you have a special guest I hear.
Yes, I do. And there's a reason why I'm playing this special tuning fork, because my guest, Kimberly Shipke, is an amazing biomedical engineer, pioneer, inventor, as well as an inventor of a laser. Chris, who has the time to create a laser? Come on.
Yeah, right.
Do you get together with your friends and go, hey, Chris, what do you want to do today? You know what? I want to create a laser. Why not? Well, this woman, Kimberly Shipke, she's an amazing lady, and I've been around some really magnificent people, Chris, around the world in my travels, living in Brazil for 8 years in the 90s. I've been around scientists, I've been around shamans, I've been around psychic healers, I've been around ufologists, I've been around people who channel and the master painters come through them. Degas, Van Gogh, Toulouse-Lautrec, they do a Modigliani with their feet. I've been around all kinds of interesting characters, and I continue. Thank you, God, for that. But Kimberly Shipke, she is a treasure, and let's bring her aboard.
Kimberly, come on down. Welcome to the show.
There she is.
That's probably the best introduction I've ever had in my life. Thank you, Julian.
Oh, wow. So introduce yourself and give us some background on you.
Yeah, so my background is in biomedical engineering. As Julian said, I earned my bachelor's and master's and minored in mathematics. And my first job was overseeing clinical trials for big pharmaceutical companies. So I could hear all of the side effects of all these drugs, for several hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I realized that this chemistry method was not the right way. So I had a health incident that the hospitals couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I went to alternative therapies. I was like, well, I've always wanted to try acupuncture. Why don't we do that? And it just led me down this amazing trail of, learning more physics-based ways to heal the body. And which is where tuning forks come in, working with coherent sound and then working with coherent light and developing the spectrochrome laser.
Oh, interesting.
Kimberly, I have a question, because last week, and I've been playing with these tuning forks since you've taught me, and blessings to you for that. And last week I took the tuning fork and I surrounded my client, who's a well-known chiropractor here in New York City. And she is, she's like a beyond chiropractor. And I started tuning, and then I started oming with the tuning fork. And I had a session of a lifetime. Can you tell the viewers, what is it about the tuning fork? What is it about your work that they themselves can learn? And it's very fast and it's very easy, and it's amazing. It's amazing, this frequency. Darling,
the easiest way.
Frequency. What's going on here with this thing? I'm obsessed now. I can't sleep.
Well, the frequency that I work with is 111 hertz, and I'm sure as a numerologist you can appreciate those numbers. But when I first, started striking that tuning fork, there was something within me that I loved it so much, and then I later, as I was looking into it more, I found out that it's the resonant frequency of the Oracle Chamber in Malta, which is where they found over 200 elongated skulls. And so, I was like, well, then, this is the one. But the best way I could describe on how it's working, how I describe it to people is, if two people had a guitar, one guitar was in tune and one was out of tune, you just keep giving them that in tune note, and that person whose guitar is out of tune, they can make whatever subtle changes that they need to also become in tune. So as the person striking the tuning fork, I'm giving them that coherent input, but their body is the one that's making the shifts and the changes to become more in tune. So that's, kind of the basics on how that works. And then when you start working out in the energy field, 5 or 6 feet away from the body, it's like the planet has the magnetosphere, or the sun has a heliosphere. We find that there's a charged boundary about 5 or 6 feet away from the body. So when you're striking a tuning fork and you start to bring it in the atmosphere around a person, when you hit that edge of the field, you can feel the tuning fork starts hitting the edge of their bubble. And by bringing that coherent input in physics, it doesn't matter how chaotic a waveform, you just keep giving that a coherent waveform. It'll eventually, you keep giving it that coherent waveform, eventually will also become coherent. So like with Parkinson's, it's like the person has like a chaotic waveform. And so I can bring in that coherent input, and within about 15 minutes, I can get their hands to stop shaking. So it's been pretty fascinating.
That's incredible.
With Alzheimer's, you can find it's about 5 or 6 inches off of the right side of the forehead. It's like the field, it's almost like Swiss cheese, like you're interacting with the field, and then you get there and it's like there's nothing. And I think that part of what the problem is with that is the cell phones and putting and like cutting through this part of the field, and then the radiation in this part of the field, it kind of degrades the structure of that part of the field. So I've been able to help people who, start telling the same thing over and over again. And, if I can catch it early on, people have been able to remember 5-digit numbers days after seeing them. So I've had some pretty amazing results with that. Head injuries, like football players and concussions, and and soccer players where they hit the ball on that part of the head, it's like you can hear this static noise around their head. So I've worked on UFC fighters, I've worked on NFL players, I've worked on a lot of different injuries or around the body.
So what you're saying is that we have a field around us, and when we ourselves are either sick or damaged or ill or whatever it is that's happening with us, that within that field, that frequency is screaming out for, let's say, assistance in a way. And here you are with your expertise and your professionalism, and you're able to sort of like participate in a way of bringing harmony and balance to that screaming of that illness, and harmonize it and calm it down, and eventually also bring it to a place of peace,
coherence. Yeah,
and coherence.
Absolutely. So one of my mentors, when I first started getting into this work and wanting to study more physics-based ways of healing, my mentor was Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher. She worked on the Stargate project, which relates to remote viewing, but she gave me piles of books. And one of the books that she gave me was Robert Becker's The Body Electric, where he talks about, different animals that have cancer, and they had incoherent fields over the cancer, over the tumor. And I know that when I've been working with tuning forks, I've worked over a woman's hips, and it's almost like I'm bouncing up against this wall with the tuning fork. I strike it and I bring it in, and it's like dunk. And the woman had fibroids, and she never told me, but I was able to find this fibroid, and it just kind of melted over time. I used a crystal to help amplify the frequency, but we were able to melt several fibroids, and I've even melted some the size of a softball. And the woman said that it felt like a baby was moving around inside, and it just kind of melted into like pudding, and being able to clear things in the field, and the physical body will shift into a new matrix. And she also gave me a chapter out of a book. It's called The Electrodynamic Theory of Life. And so they talk about how a field affects the particle, but also how a particle affects the field. So by being able to shift things in the field, you find that the physical body can also shift. Sound is used to break up kidney stones. I don't think that it's too far-fetched, that being able to work in the field and introducing that sound, that the physical body will then shift into kind of the new coherent matrix. And I've had some incredible results.
So this is where we're going, especially as we're stepping into 2025. We're connecting more with frequency, our own frequency. People are recognizing one way or another that they are a walking, talking, physical frequency. As a numerologist, that's what I do in regards with the letters corresponding to the numbers, and that's all about a light frequency. And I call it the light frequency of the divine. Then we have people like yourself who's dealing with tuning forks as well as the laser. So, Kimberly, just let us know in a number of words, because we can be speaking here till the cows come home. The fact that why did you create a laser? Here you are, a beautiful woman, and you can go out dancing and you can do whatever you want to be doing wherever you're living. And here you are all of a sudden creating a laser. Why would a woman of your kind, let's say, go off and create a laser?
Well, my background is in biomedical engineering. So that's, I kind of broke the mold. I was definitely the only girl in a lot of my classes. And, but when I was with my mentor, Dr. Elizabeth Rauscher, she took me up to the World Research Foundation Library in Sedona, Arizona to meet Steve Ross. And before I left, he said, "Your angels told my angels to give you these books." And that was Spectrochrometry Encyclopedia by Dinshaw Gadiali, Let There Be Light by his son Darius Dinshaw, and Rainbow Colors of Light by the head of the Zoroastrian community, Meher Master Moose. And so in his books and spectrochrometry, he would use light to heal the body. And he always started every session with green all over the body. And this is in the 1920s and 30s. So this is around Royal Raymond Rife's time. his lab and his research and his tools were smashed on the front lawn and destroyed, a lot like Royal Raymond Rife's. So I had already been interested in, the healing power of light. So I started using tuning forks in 2012. So I've been doing that for 12 years now and had been working with coherent sound. And so I knew that lasers weren't declassified until the 1950s or 60s. So I was like, well, why don't we use the same kind of color theory from spectrochrometry and using green, which is that middle of the spectrum, like red, orange, yellow, we're all stimulating colors, and blue, indigo, violet, we're all relaxing colors. But green was that happy middle of the spectrum. So I started adding coherent light to the coherent sound. So I started putting the green laser down below the feet just to help keep the system grounded. And then I could start kind of pinging around in the field and do a lot more work. I was like, wow, I can get twice as much stuff done when I add this coherent light. And look how much I'm able to shift when I add two forms of coherence to the body. And that was around 2020. So when you're like, who's got the time? I was locked down and I couldn't teach biofield tuning anymore. So I was like, well, why don't I develop this laser? And I'd made about maybe 10 of them. And a friend of mine used it and it helped heal her dog. It was 13-year-olds. And it's like a child when, after 13 years. And the dog's still alive today. And she was so blown away. She was like, Kimberly, I want to start selling these lasers. I want, 50 of them. And so she basically kind of got my business started of Gwen. This is Gwen Foster. And so that's how the laser was kind of born. And what I loved the most about using the green laser was that it helped neutralize the energy field. So when we were, people are talking or going through different emotional things, whether it was sadness or anger, their field would get supercharged. That green laser was able to help neutralize that charge in their field so that when they think back to that event, it just felt like information. One of the ladies who's worked with my laser, she found her husband dead on the floor. And she said, Kimberly, every time I think about it, every time I talk to somebody about it, I just feel this whole wave of emotion coming up. And this was, years after it had happened. And so she said, I put the green laser on my heart because we have 40,000 neurites in our heart. I call it the quantum core processor. And so being able to clear things, you can try in your head all you want, but you got to really clear things in the heart. And so she said, I put it there and I just imagined, went back in my mind to that memory. And I even thought the phrase, and she said, Kimberly, it just feels like information now. I don't get charged when I think about it. I don't get charged when I talk about it. And that's, I feel, is a real gift. If you're not, spending your energy on emotions, then your vitality body and your physical body is going to be a lot stronger. If you're not getting triggered by things that people are saying or doing, then you're going to be able to stay more coherent and not get phased by what's going on in the world and around you.
So here I am, and A Little Twisted is on. Hello, Little Twisted, Julie. All these different people are on, and I have your laser right here in my hand, and I'm putting it in my heart. What exactly am I doing now? Yes, John.
So with this green laser, yeah, and putting it there on your heart, that's one of the ways that I like I said, I recommend using for emotional trauma. So that's something where you've got to go into your mind and you've got to think back to those events. So again, you're doing the hard work. You got to go back and feel it to heal it. But what I found is, you might need to play through the memory, a few times to where, like for me, when I first used it, I thought about a memory, and again, it was like, this wave of emotions. And then by the second time, I'm like, okay, let me play through it again. And it was still a little bit of a wave. And then the third time it felt neutral, and it felt just like information. But I also find that it helps for future things too. So if people are going into the future and getting anxious and like, what if this happens or what if that happens, and their field is getting really electric, that being able to put that laser on their heart and think about, what is it in the future that you're getting anxious or you're getting electric about, and being able to neutralize that so you can come back to the now, which is that present gift.
So the laser is an extension of yourself and where you're at that moment. And at the same time, what I'm hearing from you, it's almost like you're connecting with your heart. You're reflecting. So in a way, you're stepping into the light of the laser, almost like a time machine. And now you're going into memories, and you're learning how to process these energies, which are really frequencies that could be blocking you one way or another to your wellness, to your healing, to your abilities to do whatever you feel is necessary for you to do, free of that. So this laser is a tool for you to use to process, to connect, to take what serves you, and to move forward. And you're free now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, if your teacher told you something and when he called you a name or put some kind of information into your brain, and you were 6 years old, and then suddenly this random person, they say the exact same thing to you, you're going to be triggered. You're going to be like, because they're hitting a very big part in your energy field. And so people are like, wow, why did they react in that way? They don't understand. But so I feel like it's your own responsibility to clear those triggers within yourself so that you can be neutral and not get charged. And like I said, stay coherent, because if I'm in my center and you're in your center and I'm not phased and you're not phased, then that's where I feel that harmony comes in.
And the question here from Barbara is the fact that can you perform this in person, or can it be done remotely? I know the answer to that, but Kimberly, go ahead, take the floor.
Most of the work that I do is remote. It's over the phone. I find that when I do sessions in person, but when you're over the phone and you're not being observed, there's that observer effect, right? So if I've found that if I'm working on a person's jaw and I say, okay, now stretch out your jaw, in person, they might just, do like a little bit, and I can feel in the tuning fork that there's not much shifting. Whereas when I do sessions remotely and I'm like, okay, now shift your jaw, I can feel how much is moving, because they're not being, they're not worried about making a weird face, or especially in working in the hips. You can lay on your own bed, and if I'm like, okay, I'll stretch out your hips, then they can do whatever they need to do. Whereas on a massage table, you're kind of limited and you can't really move around that much. And especially if I'm working in the head, I don't want people to drive afterwards. It kind of feels like I'm doing brain surgery with a fork instead of a knife. So yeah, I prefer to do remotely. One of the ladies that I had helped with the fibroids, she was in Mumbai, India, and I was in Tupelo, Mississippi, and she didn't tell me about the fibroids until after she'd gone to the doctor and they were gone. And she said, Kimberly, I had fibroids and I don't have them anymore, and I know it's because of the work that you did. So with the work, again, I want people to be, eyes closed and be in their body. And so we just go on speakerphone. And so I don't even do through Zoom, because if you're looking at the computer screen, your awareness is out at the screen and it's not inside where it needs to be. So I can, feel and work into the field. So I actually prefer to work remotely and from a distance. I have a session on Wednesday with somebody in Tasmania. I was working on a pianist in London the last few weeks, and I've got clients in South Africa. I love tuning, Australia, New Zealand. I've worked on people in Tokyo, and it's the next day there. And so I'm tuning into the future. And I really love that. I also work on animals. I've worked on horses and giraffes and elephants. The first animal I ever tuned was an elephant in Sri Lanka. That one was in person, but tuned plants. I've tuned a fish. They say you can't tune a fish, but I have tuned a fish before. So yeah.
I'm hearing any kind of consciousness. Honey, bring in the monkey. No, I don't. But what I'm hearing also is the fact that when you're saying you're using the tuning fork to tune into the body, it's almost like I'm feeling like you're envisioning, am I correct here? You're envisioning the person's body like a hologram, almost like a frequency, and that you're using the tuning fork to connect with their frequency, with that hologram, which is within and around them. And you're able, with your sensitivity and understanding that the tuning fork is an extension of yourself, as well as your frequency, that you're connecting with that. And as I'm looking at Chris, he's either appearing or disappearing, or I see a tuning fork with you as well, Chris. Here we are.
Yes, I got a whole set of them.
I know. I thought I saw that, or I thought that was my great-great-grandfather coming through, showing me his tool of tricks. And
yes, I got a whole set of them. I love them.
So there you go. So
what I do is I lay out crystals and stones to represent the feet, the legs, each of the nerve plexuses that run up the midline of the body. I like to add, the coherent structure of crystals, and I work with stones called euphorolite, which are from the Black Hills, which is where I'm from. It has meteorite in it, and I love working with that. With different stones. And so it is, whatever you tune your mind into. So if I wanted to tune into, a person who's got anxiety and I want to tune into their adrenals, my mind mentally is tuning into and envisioning that this tuning fork is interacting with their adrenals. And so sure enough, when my mind is tuned into adrenals, I can feel the kind of racing that can happen there within the adrenals. And then you, like I said, you just keep giving that coherent input, and it's like those adrenals will just come down to a stop. And when I first had my adrenals worked on and I felt it come down to a stop, it was like I felt stillness on the inside for the first time. I'm the youngest of 4, and I had 2 older brothers who were 6'4", 250-pound defensive ends, and I described them as velociraptors, where you'd be looking at one and then the other one would come out of nowhere. So I feel like they helped, teach me how to sense into the energy field and become, that sensitive. And yeah, it's just been an incredible journey of working and using your mind. And same thing with the laser. You know, you're tuning into your mind plays such a role in working with the laser. You know, you've got to go there mentally to be able to work on these different parts of your field.
Chris, why do you have tuning forks? What's your story?
I usually use them to help meditate, and I use them on different parts of the body.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And I use crystal bowls too.
Very nice. Yeah, I had a crystal bowl, sort of like a meditation, in one of the centers here in New York City. There must have been about 60 bowls, and the person was just going off on these bowls, and it was quite fascinating. It was like an hour of just bowls, and that took me to another place.
Yeah, I've had some where they put the singing bowls on my body, like on my belly, and I just felt so much shifting and moving. It was a pretty powerful experience.
All these different tools of frequency. Back to you, Kimberly, quickly. So I have no idea what you're saying. Let's say it's and I'm listening to you, and I'm going, wow. I want to learn more about this frequency, especially the fact that we're going to 2025. 2025 is a 9, and that's being one with higher mind, one with God consciousness. And it's all about removing toxicity within our mind, body, and spirit. It's removing the toxicity physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually within our body, within our frequency, so we can be more clear as well as more attuned to what is it that we're here to do with our purpose, stepping up even higher and higher within our evolution, because 2025 is going to be a ride of our lifetimes. Put on your seatbelts, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. Where do I start, Kimberly Shipke, with these tools?
Well, I do teach an online coherency course that's available. So there are videos that you can watch online where I teach you how to strike the tuning fork. I first teach you how to tune into the field of a house plant. So you can find the edge of the field of the house plant and start to see, okay, that's starting to let me move, and then how to work on that. And then we progress into being able to tune humans, and I even teach how to tune animals, because I love tuning animals so much that I want more people to kind of dive into the animal kingdom. So that would be where I would say is a good place to start of being able to learn. And I teach about how to use the laser individually, and then how to use them both together. I also have a master dowser, David Yarrow. He teaches how to douse and find geopathic stress, in the space. I was working on this one lady, and I helped tune her off thyroid medication. So she was, went to the doctors, and the numbers kept going off. And so they kept reducing it until she was completely off the medication. But she still had, she'd come back every few months, and I'd have to keep working on it. And so we'd become friends over the years. And I asked her if I could come to her house and just check and see if there's any geopathic stress. And sure enough, there was about 3-inch band across her bed. So, I would tune her, but then for 8 hours every night, she'd be sitting in this incoherence. And so in the class, I teach how you can find it with dowsing rods and work with the tuning forks and the lasers to help work on this geopathic stress, in your home and your environment. If you're, an energy worker, being able to make sure that the bed where the person is that you're trying to work on them, that energy and the space. So also tuning into the space and the environment that you're in. So, so that would be where I would recommend people get started.
Well, I've taken a number of your courses. One recently a week or 2 weeks ago. It was on Facebook. It was very, it was not only informative, it was so enlightening, and also the people that were on that particular in that class, and one woman who worked with birds, with eagles and hawks, and her and how she was connecting with them on such a different level using tuning forks was extraordinary. Was in itself,
Yes.
within itself, and her work and what she's doing, because of you and what you were presenting, was
Yes.
it was like watching a TV show on Netflix.
Yes, this is Courtney Miller. She's based in Traverse City, Michigan. She's an Anishinaabe medicine person, and she, had learned how to tune animals and work with animals in the laser. And what I love is that on election day, they were able to release an eagle that she had been working on, and I just felt the timing of all of that is incredible. And at this Raptor Center, since she started using these tools on hawks and owls and eagles, they've been able to release more birds and the shortest period of time. That the person who was running the Raptor Center, they were kind of skeptical, and but they kept seeing how much the birds were shifting, that eventually they were like, well, do you want to work on me? And so they were open to receiving a session from her. And most recently, she said that it would kind of open things up, almost like psychic ability, where, he used to, when he would move the eagle from one place, and these are wild eagles, not trained eagles, he would have to wrap them up with a towel and bring them to, to another space. And now he said that he just thinks about it, opens the cage, and the eagle will come out and land on his arm. So it's like the psychic kind of connection of the bird already knowing what needs to be done. They're kind of communicating that much more. So I think, not just working on animals, but the people, the owners of the animals, or the people who are working in these kind of veterinary recovery centers, working on those people as well, so that they're nice and coherent, because the birds can pick up if you're having a bad day, or if you're really charged. Animals are really sensitive to those things. And so I'm excited that both the humans and the animals are both getting worked on there, and I'm so proud of Courtney and all the work that she's been doing. I love seeing more and more videos of her, like releasing an owl, back out into nature. It warms my heart, and I'm thrilled that she's taken this course and really running with it.
It's extraordinary, because one of the things, as we step into this 2025 vibration, which is also, it's a culmination of all the vibrations of 1 through 9. So you have the 1 of leadership, the 2 of union and partnership and solving problems, as well as being that of the arbitrator, peacemaker. You have the 3 of communication, telecommunications, as well as that of being the child of the universe, expression, singing, dancing, all sorts of arts. You have the 4 of being that of the engineer, the organizer, the architect. You have the 5 of change, being that of in between the 1 and the 9. And you have that of transformation and transmutation, and realizing that you yourself are the shaman of the earth, with the 5 senses, the 5 elements, as well as that of the energy of great change that's taking place. The 6 of that of the heart, of being of service, of being that of responsible, the family, the mother, the father, the one who nurtures, who assists, and is there for you. The 7, as today being the 25th, of that of higher mind, of that of the alchemist, of that of a person who's here to understand how to use their intuitive as well as their abilities that go far beyond our imagination. The 8 of that of the entrepreneur and the business person and the person who's here to understand their power, how to delegate that power, not to be afraid of power, as well as connecting with infinite intelligence and infinite mind. And the 9 is 1 with the higher 0, 1 with that God consciousness. The 9 is the time machine. So we're here to realize that we are a time machine of past, present, future, now, as we step into 2025, and that we have the abilities to re-know, I feel, to re-know our work with tuning forks, as well as lasers, ley lines, connecting with not only ourselves and making ourselves whole in our holiness, in our freedom, but our animals, our children, the people around us, so we can be clearer in regards to our evolution as we move forward. How's that?
Perfect.
That's all, folks. Yeah, I could.
Yes, really.
Kimberly, there are a couple of questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm sure.
All right. Have you found certain frequencies helps ADHD?
I find, well, I tend to work with my 111 hertz tuning fork, despite, whatever it is, I tend to bring that tuning fork into the field. With ADHD, it can be, working around the head. Again, that kind of busy mind, you can kind of find it spinning around a little bit. And so you just bring that tuning fork in. Also, I work down around the feet just to help ground some of that electricity. It feels like there's so much moving up here that it doesn't know how to make its way to ground. So when you bringing that tuning fork in and working more on the feet, it's like it can help this kind of all this electricity up here kind of float in through the body and go down to ground. So making sure that those pathways are nice and open to get some of that charge out of the field. And then, like I said, around the head and letting that stabilize. I've worked with kids who are autistic, and that's one of the things that I've been able to do. And a kid who was nonverbal after a few sessions, and I taught the parents how to use the tuning fork so that they could do it, and as well. And the child was able to speak for the first time, and watching the dad's eyes well up with tears, it was pretty beautiful. So yeah, I think in terms of kind of electricity and seeing the body as a machine, as biomedical engineer, you start thinking things of, how the electricity can get out of whack. And with ADHD, it definitely feels like a lot going on up here and not enough going ground and staying focused and centered in the present moment.
Okay. Well, Twisted asked, I've used infrared for healing too. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I love infrared temperature. I mean, I think that there's a lot of research showing the benefits of using infrared light. It's the red light therapies that I'm a little bit concerned, especially women putting red on the face. And spectrochrometry, you would, it's contraindicated if somebody's central nervous system is already kind of stressed out. The last thing that you would do is put red onto the face. And so I know it's being used for beauty. It stimulates cell division. But it's like, you might look beautiful, but are you a basket case type thing? There was one of my clients, one of her patients was using that red light, and they said, I'm seeing red, and they were like, I'm just so angry. And, I don't know what to do with all of this anger and all of this charge. And so they recommended that they start using my green laser, and they were like, it's totally changed my life. So every time I see the latest, red light beauty trend, I'm like, yeah. But as infrared, I don't have, I'm a fan of.
Wow, interesting. Do you find with the new 5G, your frequencies of choice need to be recalibrated or recalibration at all?
I started working with the 111 around the time that 5G started coming out. So I used to use 174 hertz all the time. all the time. And then when 5G came in, I was like, I didn't even like the sound of it after that. So that was about the time that I brought in the 111 hertz fork. So yeah, absolutely. I felt like I needed to do some shifts there. One of the things I would recommend people look into is biogeometry. I've tested a lot of these different cell phone chips, but this one developed by Dr. Ibram Karim has been one that I've been most fascinated with. He had, if you look up the miracle of Hemberg, they had put wasn't 5G, this was many years before, but they had put a cell phone tower in the steeple of a church. And, you know, people were having to get put on sleep aids. They were getting ringing in the ear. The birds and the bats stopped migrating to that area. Humans and animals were having tumors and miscarriages. And he created a particular geometry that he pointed at the cell phone tower to change the quality of the energy. So they didn't have to take the towers down. They used the tower, you know, kind of as a carrier wave for this higher quality energy to be broadcast out to the field. So where people were sleeping in their root cellars for 3 years to get away from this radiation after they put these Hemberg emitters in on the church steeple where that tower was, you know, all of those issues started to go away. So when I in the advanced class, you'll learn how to install a Hemberg emitter. And so it's almost like it turns the cell phone tower into a healing device. And so it's one of those things where, you know, if you can't tear them down, you know, we're all dependent on it now, right? But being able to change the quality of the energy and turning it into a healing device, I think it's really fascinating. This is based in Egyptian temple science and the resonance of shape. And so I'm all about resonance, and this class was pretty mind blowing. So I recommend it to anybody. You know, I don't care what your background is, that you're going to find a way to be able to bring, you know, this biogeometry into your daily life, and you will look at the world differently. When I went to visit Julian up in New York, I was like looking at all the buildings, and I was like, "Do you see this? Do you see that? And this is why they were made it this way." And you will be a different person by the time you finish with that class.
Well, it's so important for us to have that experience. Again, look at the 9. The 9 also is the umbilical cord that's going into Mother Earth. So it's all about us grounding. And then that 0 could be like a balloon where we're grounded to Earth, but we can take that balloon wherever it is that we wish to go. And that's what this amazing year is going to be as we're transitioning into this year. Also, just want to say, and I've been looking at for the last weeks, all these different programs, and they always say this is for entertainment purposes only. So just to tell everyone and everybody, as well as the powers, that this is for entertainment purposes only. So
we threw the disclaimer up, ladies and gentlemen. We got
I just saw that, and that's the blessing. But we are human beings, and we're not AI hybrid robots. So it's great to be human, and just to bring up also very quickly, because we're coming to a close, we're going into Thanksgiving, and please come from a place of gratitude, come from a place of your power. Do not be afraid of if someone has another idea or another philosophy or their religion or their politics, or they don't believe anything, if all of a sudden you start tuning the turkey or anything of that nature. You gotta own yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, or you're going to be eaten up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, metaphorically. You deserve to own yourself, to understand yourself, so you can deal with whatever is happening from that place of your heart and that place of love, because we all are love, love, and love.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Kimberly,
Go ahead. I was just going to say, one of the things that I've noticed is, you know, if I feel charged and electric, whether it's from something that somebody said, what I tend to do is I'll take a deep breath in my belly and I try to let it go, rather than like fighting charge. If somebody's saying something charged, rather than coming back with more charge because I'm charged, I try and take a moment and I take a breath, I inspire it and letting that go, and then I can respond from a more neutral space rather than from a charged space. So if somebody says something and you get really triggered and you're like, I can't believe they said that, just try to be like, breathe, let's bring spirit in, let it go, and then from this neutral space try to respond from there. That's the best thing that I can recommend, you know, and trying to keep yourself grounded.
Beautifully, beautifully said. Also, I ask people before they leave their house, see themselves like a light bulb. There's two switches here of your medullas of your left and right hemisphere, and just put out that energy. So put on those switches, put them on, go out into the world and see yourself like a light bulb. When you come back, turn the light off, say thank you, and go out in the world in that luminosity, in that grace that we're all a part of.
That's correct. Kimberly, where can people find you, follow you, get a hold of you?
So my websites are biofieldlab.com. And also my name, probably the easiest, fastest way to get in touch with me is my email, which is kimberly.shipke@gmail.com. And then I also have my buygreenlaser.com. That's more where you can find the tools, find the laser, find the tuning forks and the pendulums and the dowsing rods. We kind of have a course bundle, and we're going to have a Black Friday sale for all of those tools too. So this weekend, if you guys want to take advantage of that. And then there's also a link to where you can sign up for the coherency course and some of the bundle tab there.
Awesome. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Another show in the books. Don't forget, happy Thanksgiving. And we got a show coming up in less than an hour. Tune in for that. And from coast to coast, around the world. Godspeed, everybody. Thank you, Kimberly. Take care.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
YouTube channel near you.